Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good?
Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest Small Talks episode where Alan and I got overwhelmed by talking about overwhelm.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we are going to do a Scratching the Surface episode on recreation. So, we had Terrence McMahon on several times. I don't remember the episode numbers because I don't ever.
I believe 74 was the second one. I believe.
That was a while ago, huh? Jeez.
That was a hot minute
my
ago.
Goodness, that was like 60 ago. Recreation. If you aren't happy with the person that you are today, if you're not happy with the place that you feel like you're living in, if you're not happy with the direction that you feel you're going in, if you're not happy with the way you're experiencing your reality, it's time to recreate yourself. Now, in order to recreate yourself, you have to figure out first where you are. What is the reality I'm currently living in? And that's why I said in the outro for the Overwhelm episode that recreation, I think, goes hand in hand with identity, because if you identify as somebody who is afraid of change, or somebody who is just, oh, the world is just out to get me, I just have terrible luck, then in order to recreate yourself, you have to first realize that you have some negative associations. Oh my God, I can't talk. Associations, or you probably have some limiting beliefs that are holding you back.
Limiting. A couple limiting beliefs.
But first,
Dristy. So I wanted to really quickly, before we dive into recreation,
dive
a little deeper than Kevin just went there,
right.
To remind you all to go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com,
Yes.
Join our mailing list. You're going to get three hyperconscious morning minutes. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Folks, the only way you're going to recreate yourself is the small daily disciplines you do every single day. Let us help you kickstart your days off right. I also want to build some anticipation. I wrote a very special dramatic reading for this episode. Yep. And it's not too long, don't worry.
Yeah, right.
But I'm very excited about
Right.
it. Recreation is quite literally one of my favorite topics in the entire world. I feel like Kevin recreated himself. I feel like, what's the matter?
The timer.
The timer's not on?
No. Okay, talk more about me?
Yeah. So Kevin recreated himself because he had a strong enough reason to do that, and also because when the pain is great enough, you will change. So he always talks about that moment in the bed, on the bed in New Jersey, contemplating suicide. If you go back to the podcast we did with 2 Marines, 1 Mike, the theme of that episode was what I believe to be the greatest catalyst of positive change, which is when the pain is great enough, you will change. Now, here's the problem. So I transformed myself, recreated myself after a car accident where I had to start questioning whether or not I was living the fullest, most incredible life I possibly could, and whether or not my legacy, was going to be something that I was proud of. So I think there's a few ways to catalyze recreation, and we talk about that all the time. But let's talk about what recreation really is. The first thing I want to say, to piggyback on what Kevin was saying, is this. All of us have the power to recreate ourselves. All of us do. We all, quite literally, can be better tomorrow than we are today. If we go to bed a little bit stronger, a little bit sharper, a little bit smarter every single day, those things compound into, quite literally, a brand new person and a brand new identity.
I think that, for me, I'm trying to I'm trying to go very deep in my own head about how one can recreate themselves. And the best way I can do that is to go into my own head about, like, I know people see me today, right? And I've had people say, like, you're a great podcaster, you're a great coach, you're a great example. Like, I'm so glad you took the chance at chasing your dreams. And I had to recreate myself in order to have this reality that I have now. I was never like this before. And I think that one of the things that I really appreciate about you and I, and the fact that we get to spread so much truth on this podcast, is that, like, this is the journey for us. This is the climb. I'm not the polished product because I'm new to this. You know, I'm new to this life. I'm new to this confidence. I'm new to this scene. I'm new to all of this. And it's only because I recreated myself. For the longest time, I was afraid of being in front of the camera. I never would have been in front of a microphone. So the person that I had created at that time was shy. He was introverted. He was self-conscious. He lacked self-esteem. He wasn't a good communicator. He wasn't... I feel like I've always been, good with people, but not in the right... I didn't have the right direction. I didn't have much hope. Like, I didn't have a brighter future. And I think that you guys have to lock in that the only reason that happened, like, this is happening, the only reason is because I recreated myself. I had, those moments where I was like, I'm not happy with the person I am. And, like, what am I going to do this forever? Like, I'm making good money, but I'm not happy. The money doesn't change my self-esteem issues. It doesn't make me more confident. It doesn't really give me a brighter future. It just gives me more comfort. And that's not brighter to me. So I think for you guys, it's like, what is your life like right now? Are you a smoker that doesn't want to be a smoker? Like, what is your reality? What is your identity that you need to recreate? And is it somebody who's afraid of everything? Is it somebody who's afraid of planes? On 2 episodes ago, Tiffany Wells, she said that, she's afraid of planes. She's terrified. But she's going to take a trip because she doesn't want to be the person who never got on a plane because she was afraid. She's recreating herself. That's what recreation looks like.
So how does somebody recreate themselves?
I think...
How did you do it?
I changed what I wanted out of life. And I've told this story before, but my goal that year, the last year I worked at my job, my goal was to make as much money as humanly possible. And I made the most money I've ever made in my entire life. And at the end of the year, when I looked at that pay stub and I said, wow, I made 6 figures this year. Wow. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. I'm still not happy. I'm still not fulfilled. And then I realized overnight, I snapped my fingers, and when I decided that this podcast was everything I wanted, I had to recreate myself in order to make this podcast succeed. I firmly believe that you have to want something different in order to change yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you have to want to have the most successful podcast of all time. That's not what that means. That could mean that you've been out of shape for 15 years and you're sick of looking in the mirror the way you look, or you're sick of hiding the fact that you don't fit in your clothes, or you're sick of always wearing a t-shirt at the beach. Your version of recreation might not and probably won't be the same as mine. No. But it has to start with you saying, fuck, I'm so sick of this. I'm not happy with where I am. It's time for me to make a change. A change is what creates recreation.
A change is what creates recreation. So,
fired up.
When the pain is great enough, you will make a change. How do we... So I often talk about how we mention PTSD a lot, and that's a very real thing. After my car accident, I talk a lot about how I struggled with ceiling fans, claustrophobia, walking through tight doorways, double yellow lines on the road messed with me. I actually got pulled over again like a year after my accident, just to put this in perspective, for being too far on the right side of the road because I was scared of being on the other side after that head-on collision that I had up in New Hampshire. And for those of you who are listening right now who don't know that story, there's an episode where we go deep into that. I think it was 124, where Kevin interviewed me. But the point is that PTSD is a very real thing. When trauma happens, our brain associates things to that thing happening. And they're not always correlated. For example, double yellow lines have nothing to do with the fact that I got in an accident necessarily, but they're a trigger, okay? Now, post-traumatic growth. We talk about Kevin's story in the bed in New Jersey, thinking about suicide, and that emotion, that trauma, was the catalyst for what I would consider like a lot of growth. So there's post-traumatic stress disorder, where it's the negative side, but I don't think post-traumatic growth gets talked about enough. Post-traumatic growth is like after I got in a car accident, I reevaluated my life and decided in advance who I needed to become, and then started actually taking actions towards that, even to the extent of like walking through doorways with my chest puffed up to get over my claustrophobia. So I try to remind myself, because I feel like I'm more fearless now than I've ever been in my entire life. But sometimes I have to go back there and say, like, at one point you were scared to walk through doors, man. Like, that was, like, fear is real. Like, our mind messes with us. And if you don't get empowered and take consistent action toward your dreams, like, fear will overwhelm you and it'll hold you back. And I've been there just as much as you have. Kevin has as well. So if you're out there right now and you feel like you're unhappy, but not unhappy enough to make a change, what do we do about that? And I'm going to ask Kevin that. Like, if you're in what Tony Robbins refers to as no man's land, in other words, you're not happy and you know it, but you're not unhappy enough to make a change, what do we do? What can people do about that?
I'm going to be very transparent. So when I was working at this job that I was at, I looked around and I saw probably 4 or 5 people that most likely will never leave there. They will most likely work there until they're physically unable to work there anymore, and that'll be their life. And that scared the shit out of me. Mm-hmm. That scared the shit out of me, because we were talking about this earlier. I traded in so much for that job. Yeah. I traded in physical health, mental health, relationships, security, so many things. I was gone months at a time. Like, I was always gone. I was never home. It sucked. I always used to say it's like I'm like a rock star, except I don't have any of the rock star benefits. I'm just never home. But
that sounds terrible.
It was the worst. It was one of the. But again, I learned.
Shout out to JB Frank.
Yeah, JB Frank. What's up, dog? He was a rock star. Yeah. There's a couple ways, right? You can reverse engineer regret, and you can say, okay, if I live this year for the next 40. Number one, is anything going to change? Number two, am I going to regret that and say, shit, I really wish I made a change earlier? You can, and I made a post about this the other day. You can make a change now, or you can wait a year and wish you made a change a year ago.
I saw that post.
I
reposted that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's fire.
For the love.
Yep.
I think that I was watching Joe Rogan before Alan came into the studio, so I'm trying to get back to my Joe Rogan roots when I was just so moved by the clarity that he brought me. And I think that with most people, your identity, your life, I work at this company from 9 to 5, and on the weekends I go out drinking. Or I work second shift, so I don't do anything before work because I don't like leaving the house before work. And when I get home from work, I literally just eat a meal and go to sleep. The stuff that you do every day, both positive and negative, becomes normal. And I think that some people don't even know that they want to recreate themselves. Some people don't know that it's possible, and some people don't know how. If you're in the space now where you really are ready to recreate yourself, start setting different goals. That's all you have to do. If you want to get in shape, pick a triathlon a year in advance and say, I'm going to do that. Or say I'm going to do a photo shoot in a year with my boyfriend or girlfriend or my best friend or my dog or my cat, whatever it is. I think it all starts with a new goal. The thing is, you are living your life based on your old goals. And that's the only reason you haven't recreated yourself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like I did the same thing. Right. And I literally wish I could reach through the camera that I'm looking at or reach through the microphone and gently shake you. Yeah. Gently. and make you realize that if you're not happy with your life, you have to make a change. And it all starts with one change. I don't care how big or how small it is. Just make one change today that's going to make you do something different tomorrow. And that's how you recreate yourself. You recreate yourself by realizing the identity that you've fallen into that has become normal for however many years isn't serving you. You're not happy. You're not fulfilled. And we only get one chance. We only get one chance at this thing.
So that's absolute fire. Kev, what is something, you keep mentioning identity, and I think identity and recreation absolutely go hand in hand, 100%. Yeah. In other words, to define identity, it's kind of like it is impossible to consistently behave in a manner inconsistent with who we believe we are. So identity is simply what you subconsciously believe about yourself. But when was the last time you checked in with that?
Yeah.
We did an episode on identity, so definitely reference that and go back to that if you want to dive into identity. But what I want to ask Kevin is, like, what's something about you now that never used to be
that's easy,
a belief
man.
about yourself?
That's easy. We've talked about this before, man. And I want to be the most transparent person ever, not only because it helps me own my truths, but it helps you guys because I'm not perfect. I will never be perfect. I don't want to be perfect. That's not a goal of mine. I don't think it exists. One thing is I never felt valuable to women. That's something we've talked about in depth, in the deepest ways.
So now you identify as someone who is?
For the longest time, I was in shape, and I had a good heart. I always felt like I treated people with respect, and I treated them kindly. But I never really knew why else somebody would want to be with me. And now I feel valuable. I feel like I can add value to anybody in the world. Maybe it's not.
What changed?
I was forced to grow.
Right.
I had to grow in order to keep doing what I love doing.
Right.
I doubled down on what made me happy. And that's the thing that, for me, I know it was the podcast, but I also know for a lot of people, they haven't found that thing yet. And that's why I think it just has to start with what's one thing about yourself that you're not crazy about? Maybe it's the way your clothes. I don't know what it is for you if you're listening, right? I don't know what it is for you. But I know for a lot of people, it's the fact that they go to a job that they don't feel valued at. Where would you feel valued? Maybe you start painting on the weekend and whatever, put it up on your Instagram, put it up on Pinterest, put it up on Etsy, put it up on Snapchat, put it up on Facebook. You can literally put a painting anywhere. And what if one person finds that painting and says, you know what, I'd pay $45 for that? Guess what? That's what fulfillment is. If you find, oh my goodness, somebody takes value in something that came out of my brain. Oh wow, is this something that I could do full time? Maybe. I'm doing full Joe Rogan because this is what fires me up. I just know I lived so long. For so long, I lived so far under my potential, and I didn't even realize it because that was just normal.
Okay, so that's a place to start.
Sure.
For sure. So, before the car accident and after the car accident, what changed? My perception of my life. So, before the car accident, I was doing what I was doing, and I had the identity that I had. After the car accident, and for reference, my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. I was 28.6 at the time, and I had to really look in the proverbial mirror and go, like, whoa. Like, and this was really emotional at the time, like, what if that was it? So the only difference between before the car accident and after is the way I was looking at my life. In other words, before it, maybe I wasn't even looking. Maybe I wasn't even analyzing, like, am I proud of the man that I've become? Am I proud of the effect I've had on others? Am I proud of how I've taken my health and fitness seriously? Am I proud of the relationships I've created and cultivated? Am I proud of the career that I've had? You have to question yourself.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's what this podcast is. It's constantly questioning everything, not in an effort to overwhelm you, reference to the last episode,
Yes, well done.
but in an effort to get you to inspire positive change. So if you're out there right now and you're like Kevin used to live or like I used to live before we became hyperconscious, maybe you're going through your life thinking that something's okay, whereas if you did have the death of a loved one or a car accident or you got jumped by a schizophrenic or you had a suicidal moment, you might sit there and go, wow, like, maybe I don't want to live this way. So you don't need the trauma in order to get the growth. That's just a reactive way to grow. So what we do now is a proactive way to recreate yourself, which is to ask the right questions. Will I regret living this way in a year from now if I don't change? The answer might be yes. What's an example for you, Kevin, of something you will regret in a year if you don't change it?
Like right now?
Yeah, I know you mentioned recently not spending time with
My
your
family?
mom and me.
I actually did
And
that.
exactly.
That the day after we recorded that, I went and spent time with them.
Exactly.
But my father, I don't know. That's something that we talked about.
Right.
I don't know. Did we talk about that on air?
I don't know if that was on air, but for reference, who did you ask?
Justin Freeman, who is
Right.
dropping Sunday. Everything's connected.
Everything's connected. So Justin Freeman, you talked with him about how you're not sure how you feel.
Yeah, Justin Freeman is an up-and-coming rapper, talented as F. He has a song called Happy Father's Day where he actually references his relationship to his father, and he didn't have one growing up. And him and I resonated highly with that. And I asked him, I said, that's kind of something I'm going through as well, and I don't know if I would regret, not reaching out and not trying to facilitate some sort of relationship. And I still don't know. You and I talked in depth about it, and I don't know if it's something I would regret. Now, I also will be honest, I haven't put the conscious effort into thinking about it, right?
Exactly.
Going back to the last episode about being overwhelmed.
Yep.
I'm putting out so many fires, so to say,
Right.
that I don't have time to take a look at the flowers and figure out what the next step is. And that might be an excuse, that might be a justification. I understand that, but it's something that I have to question for sure. Will I regret that? My father will die most likely before me. Let's be realistic. And
Statistically, yeah.
I will get most likely, if nothing changes, I will or will not regret that. That's what I have to weigh, and then I have to make a decision according to that. Now, if I get around him and find that, okay, this isn't the thing for me, then at least I can check the box and say, you know what, I tried, and I feel confident in the fact that I won't regret that. But I think with most people, most people's biggest fear is living with regret.
I couldn't agree more. So you're very emotionally driven. We've talked about that in the podcast. We did a course on it. But I think for the listeners, here's a leverage point. If you want to recreate yourself, you got to figure out your own heartstring. So for me, in an effort to be, one of the things that makes me most emotional is thinking about my dad. And so one of the ways that I force myself, if you're out there right now and you think that I'm special, I'm not. If you think that I'm hardworking, I am, but I wasn't always. And when I'm being lazy or procrastinating or getting down on myself or playing the victim or feeling entitled, I'll ask myself, would my dad be proud of me? If he was watching me, would he be proud of this? And for me, that's a non-negotiable. If I'm doing something that sucks, that isn't positive for others or myself, that will flip the switch for me so fucking fast, and I will change. I don't know what it is for you, but if you want to make positive change, you're going to have to figure out what you care about most and do it for that thing.
We tried, remember we were talking about this. Alan and I are going to be doing events in the very near future. And
yes.
I'm unbelievably excited to get in the room with our listeners and be able to shake their hands and be able to move them on a physical, in the room, you can see me, I can see you basis. But we're trying to figure out how to get you to be able to feel the kind of pain that we felt without having to feel it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we've come up with a system for that yet. But the best thing I can tell you is this. Pick the 3 things that mean the most to you and imagine that they're gone. Mm-hmm. And you're starting over. You feel like you've lost everything you've ever cared for, and you don't know where to go from here. You don't know where to go, but what you do know is, I have lost everything, so I have nothing else to lose. What would you do if you didn't have anything else to lose? I wanted to be dead. Anything is better than that, right? It's not hard to worry about failing at something when you'd rather be dead. So it was either die or start something new. I chose start something new, luckily, and I'm happy I did. But I don't want you guys to have to go through that. So pick something that means the most to you and imagine that thing's gone. And like Alan said, imagine that thing's looking down on you and it's saying, hey, Amanda, hey, Bob, hey, Steve, hey, Christina, hey, whoever you are, I want you to do something that's going to make you proud of yourself. You don't have to do what you've been doing to please other people. I want you to do something for once in your life that makes you proud of yourself, that makes you excited to get up and get out of bed. That's something that you can add value to other people. I think that we all are going to go through pain, right? I don't want you to have to go through the pain of wanting to kill yourself. I don't want you to have to go through the pain of a car accident or thinking of, your deceased father, what he would think. I don't want you to have to go through that. So we're trying to figure out a way where you can just get into your own mind and close your eyes and say, if everything was gone, where would I start? How would I start over? That is recreation. That is one way to recreate yourself. Is it extreme? Maybe. But I think it also might work because that's what worked for us.
That was fire, man.
I appreciate that.
That was fire. I'm emotional over here. I thought you were the E. One thing that I'll just say about what Kevin just said is I think my dramatic reading is going to sum it up perfectly.
Okay.
Honestly,
You want to
I
hammer
really
it now?
do. Yeah,
Hey,
I
we
kind
got
of do.
45 seconds left.
We have 45 seconds
Speed
left
reader.
on the timer. All right, so this dramatic reading actually fit this episode even better than I anticipated. So beautiful. Okay. I'll never forget the times when I felt hopeless, when I was alone in the dark and didn't know what to do or how to climb out, when I felt lost and insignificant. I knew deep down that I had my own unique version of greatness inside of me, but I didn't know how to unleash it. Fortunately, I had someone there who believed in me. I had someone there who loved me and who held space while I found the heart and courage to climb out of the darkness. I don't want anyone to feel hopeless. Each and every one of us has a unique superhero inside of us just waiting to break out.
Would you figure it out?
This thing needs to stop.
Dramatic reading time.
Each and every one of us has a unique superhero inside of us just waiting to break out. If you won't do it for yourself, do it for the people you love. Once that clicked for me, everything started to change. People say people are selfish. Bullshit. Sometimes, sure, but is that really true? Because the truth is that, like me, you'll probably do more for others in need than you'll ever do for yourself. And what is selfish about that? So maybe it's time to harness that fact. Maybe it's time to let that drive you and to start using that in your own unique way. Because like I've often said, I believe you will be remembered for two primary things: how courageously you fought for what you believe in and how fiercely you loved. And what I believe in is people, human potential. And what I love is people. And that's what I fight for every day. What's yours? So like Kevin said, figure out the three things you love most. I'm going to guess they're people. The things you value most. Maybe it's a pet. I don't know. But imagine losing that. Like, use your desire. Here's the thing I know. If you're out there right now, you have a bigger effect on others than you could possibly imagine. There are people out there that think about you, that talk about you, both positive and negative. There are people that you have influence on. Everyone you talk to, everyone you speak to, everyone who's watching you, whether it's in person or on social media or at a speech or whatever it is, you have a huge responsibility and opportunity to lead by example. To me, that's what drives me most. And by the way, just before I get to the last part of this dramatic reading real quick, when I think about, like, is my dad proud of me? I really know that at the end of the day, all he really would care about is if I was proud of myself. So if you're doing something that is making you feel like shit about yourself because you're not living up to your potential, or you're having bad habits, or you're making excuses, like, if you're not proud of who you are, just check in with that, because I think that is the thing that's going to force you to recreate yourself. So if you're out there right now, you know one of my heroes is Greg Plitt, and I wanted to read this real quick because Greg Plitt passed away when he was 36 years old, and his legacy has lived on, and that was his motto: legacy lives on. Here we go. We all had the ability to do anything. Every single day, if we can challenge ourselves a little bit physically and a little bit mentally and go to sleep stronger, then day after day we become that person we want to be. We build the indomitable will and the confidence that anything's possible and that hard work actually does pay off. It's yours to have, guys, and the thing is, you're running out of the most valuable asset. So why wait another moment not to? If you have time right now, call that person up and say you're sorry. Make amends with that person. Make it correct. Who knows how much time you have left? If you have an audition coming up, or a test or an exam or a PowerPoint slide to do, that's your name. That's the best you are right now. Get out there and make it the best you are right now. That shit moves me. Like, you only get one chance to do amazing work and to touch people's lives. It's like, you're never going to look back on your life and wish you didn't work hard, wish you didn't help someone else, wish you didn't chase your dreams. And I think that, like, recreation is going to start with looking at where you are right now and then analyzing sort of what you want for your life. And there's the rocking chair thing. If you were in your rocking chair at 80 years old, looking back on your life, like, would you be proud of the way you lived in your 20s? I don't know if you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 right now, but would you be proud of that decade? Would you be proud of that year? Those are the questions you got to ask yourself.
Fired up. I just wanted to bring this kind of to wrap it up. And the first time I talked to a couple of my clients, a couple of times where I've talked and I've done the 20-minute listener calls, the people have said, I don't be surprised if I'm a little bit starstruck at first. And number one, that was never even a thought. I never ever expected that to happen. That was never a goal. But I want you guys to know, if you met me 2 years ago, you wouldn't have been. And that's the one thing I want you to realize. Like Alan said, one of my favorite things to say, and when I do a speech in the very near future, it will be something like this. I really am nothing special. I want something so badly. I want something bad enough to do whatever it takes. And that means I will become whoever it takes for me to accomplish that. Now, 2 years ago, you would not have been impressed with me. You would not have been starstruck. You wouldn't have even listened to me, honestly, because why would you? I didn't listen to myself, right? So I want... one of my main goals is that. I want to prove to you that you can recreate yourself. I did it. Alan's done it. Everybody we've had on the podcast has done it. Most people end up recreating themselves in some fashion. A lot of people do it in a negative way. And if you can do it in a negative way, you can do it in a positive way. So, I am nothing special. Alan is. Alan's pretty special. But I think that you're special in your own way. And what you lack in that, you can make up with in your work ethic or your clarity or your vision or your desire to help others. We all have a unique gift that we can leverage. And when you figure out what that is and you're willing to use that to recreate yourself, that's where it starts.
I had a client reach out to me last night, and this will be the last thing that I say. And she said something that I think is very profound that kind of I just realized right now is very relevant. She was talking about natural talent versus work ethic. And this person is in school, and she said something that really hit a note with me. Alan, I just had a thought come up, most likely because I have 3 quizzes, 2 tests, and a presentation this week. People who are school smart, when they study things, does it easily click in their brain and they have an easy time remembering and understanding information? I'm so curious. For me, I have to go over things over and over again several times until it sticks. I said, I do think it comes easier for some, yes, but you can outwork those people and far surpass them through constant repetition of the compound effect. And I said, by the way, I am one of those people you're describing, and I didn't work nearly hard enough in school because I rested on my talent, and I regret that very much. Folks, I was gifted with a very, very, very powerful brain, and for the longest time, I was dumping alcohol on it, and I was not maximizing my potential. She said, that's why I asked you. The same goes for my brother as well. He learns things really fast. I said, talent is often a burden because it usually comes at the expense of drive and ambition. I choose hunger and drive over talent all day. But if you have both, you're unstoppable. But very few people have both, in my honest opinion. She said, I agree with surpassing them with repetition. Interesting because you rely so much on it. It's easier to get away with doing less work. She's referring to people who were born with talent. I said, exactly. And doing less work becomes a habit. And if people aren't hyper-conscious enough to realize and shift that, then they'll always be beaten by people with immaculate work ethic who had to work for everything they have. There's a lot more in here, but basically what I went on to tell her was that I said, I value work ethic over natural talent 1,000 to 1. Obviously, if you have both, you're great, but there's a lot of people out there that were born with very, very big brains, very strong natural talents that don't ever do anything with them. If you're out there right now, figure out something that you want so bad that you're willing to work for it, like Kevin did, like I did, and you're going to become someone who can recreate themselves into anyone they want to become.
Ladies and gentlemen, I challenge you to figure out what version of yourself you want to be in a year, in 6 months, whenever it is. Like we always say, you have a limited time on this earth, and maybe you feel like you haven't lived up to your own expectations. Well, the first step is admitting that you haven't, and then realizing, what do I want to recreate about myself? Pick something small. It doesn't have to be to change the world. It just has to be something that's going to force you to change yourself. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Up next on Sunday, we have an episode dropping with Mr. Justin Freeman at Lyrical Superhuman on Instagram. He is an up-and-coming rapper who has the giant goal and dream of being the best rapper alive. We picked his brain. It was super awesome to be able to pick an artist's brain and ask, what was your motivation behind this song? What were you thinking when you wrote this? It's just, that was one of my goals when this podcast started, to be able to find an artist that I really liked. And how much I rave about him. He's so awesome. And, sit down and pick his brain.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable rep. Speaking of recreation, Justin Freeman, when he connected to a dream that he knew he wanted that bad, he started to recreate himself. So make sure you go into that episode with the frame of recreation, because he would tell you all you can do it too, and he is unbelievable. I was so blown away. Do not miss that rep.
We hope you enjoyed this one, and we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast.
Going hyperconscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyperconscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyperconscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyperconscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.